SABC News correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease, who is live to us from Washington, D.C., just to also weigh in on the recent news that Zuma's name is now appearing on the Epstein Files. A very good afternoon to you, Sherwin. So there has been some reporting that the former President Jacob Zuma had dinner with Jeffrey Epstein and a Russian model at the conclusion of a state visit to the United Kingdom back in 2010. But you, of course, have been going through the files made available by the U.S. Justice Department. What are you actually finding?
Well, Alicia, let us preface this. The Justice Department has released millions of files related to its investigation into Jeffrey Epstein, the now late sexual, certainly accused of sexual trafficking that died by suicide in 2019. So we want to preface this discussion with the fact that being in the Epstein Files does not necessarily convict you by, in terms of guilt by association. Let's just preface that. But yes, former President Jacob Zuma does appear in the Epstein Files via that Justice Department release. And it relates to a dinner that Epstein was part of organizing while former President Zuma was on a state visit to the United Kingdom in 2010. So I am now going to go through a step-by-step analysis of what these emails reveal. Epstein is in conversation with a friend of his named Mark Lloyd, whom we understand from a Reddit post to be a British socialite investor and obviously a power broker in terms of meeting very important people during that period. This is how it starts. Mark Lloyd writes an email to a dear Vera. Vera, we assume, is this Russian model that you were referring to. I'm a friend of Jeffrey Epstein, and I've been asked to help arrange a small dinner tomorrow night for President Zuma of South Africa at the Ritz Hotel at 7 p.m. tomorrow evening. Jeffrey suggested that I invite you, as you would be certain to add some real glamour to the occasion, right? He continues along with that invitation. This Vera, we assume Vera is then responding, but her name in the next email is then redacted. So you can again see how the Justice Department, like if I just turn this around for you, Alicia, you can see some of the redactions here. And so we have to really pass, exactly who is who and what is what. She writes back, "Hello, Mark. Very kind of you and Jeffrey to invite me. I will be honored to accept the invitation. My name is redacted. I'm a Russian model. I'm from Russia and I've lived in London for the past 2 years. She works for a model agency, etc., etc." We then go to another email. Mark Lloyd is having from Peter Mandelson, the former UK ambassador to the United States, that had to resign, Alicia, due to him being revealed in these Epstein files. He also, over the weekend, resigned from the Labour Party. He writes, Mark Lloyd, Epstein writes to Peter Mandelson, Mark Lloyd is having dinner for Zuma tomorrow night at the Ritz. I have invited a beautiful Rasina named blanked out to attend. There's another email. I am summoned to see, also redacted, we don't know who this is. I'm summoned to see President Zuma tomorrow for a private meeting. Do we like South Africa? Epstein then responds, very much. You can ask him about the girl next to Mark Lloyd. Also redacted, and then he writes, my new future ex. Then, Jeffrey Epstein is also a redacted name. Someone is writing to Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey, blanked out, redacted, was a delight last night. We assume he's referring to Vera, right, the Russian model, and enchanted all those she met. Her beauty apart, she displayed an elegance and a natural charm that is a rare combination to find anywhere these days. So a very big thank you for the introduction. He then talks about some other issues and then says this. So thank you again for that. By the way, Jacob Zuma was very much more impressive and engaging than I thought he would be. Now, that gives us, Alicia, the first indication that Jeffrey Epstein might not have been at the meeting with President Zuma at the dinner, even though he was part of facilitating it. And this is, I'll tell you why I believe that. Another email to Jeffrey Epstein from the Mark Lloyd that initiated the conversation with Vera. Jeffrey, redacted, was magnificent. She is that rare combination of elegance, charm, and natural beauty, and what is more, she is smart with it. He then continues about what a positive experience she was. Then he says this, that aside, we all found Jacob Zuma a much more impressive character than we expected. He displayed more gravitas and none of the macho bluster he is generally portrayed as having in the tabloid press. Now, why do we think Jeffrey Epstein was not there? Because of this. When are you coming to London? can you travel yet, or are the restrictions still in place? So that then gives you a very clear indication that while Jeffrey Epstein might have facilitated this introduction, facilitated this Russian model at the alleged Zuma dinner, there is no evidence that Epstein himself was there. And given the feedback, right, the analysis that he receives post that dinner from this Mark Lloyd, we assume, when are you coming to London? Can you travel yet, or are restrictions still in place? Which suggests he was not in London at the time for the London dinner with former President Zuma.
Very interesting account of those events there, Sherwin, because I also took the time and went on, of course, the government page just to see what the President Zuma was actually doing during that state visit. And it says here, on that night in question, right, on your emails, it says, in the evening, the President attended a banquet at Guildhall that was hosted by the Lord Mayor of London, among issues covered. And then, of course, it goes on to say the rest of those details as well as proceedings pertaining to that night. I mean, you've also heard directly from the Zuma Foundation spokesperson, Mzwanele Manye, whom we know has long criticized some of the reporting. What have you found in this regard?
Well, I mean, first I asked him to confirm. I asked him to send me a statement, which was published in South African media, and I asked him directly if he can confirm that this meeting actually took place. Right? It's kind of the first question, journalism 101, and he said he could not. So he's not confirming whether this meeting happened or whether it didn't. But he did say that he called some of the publications in South African media textbook example of agenda-driven journalism built on innuendo, third-party emails, and retrospective guilt by association. At no point does the article allege, let alone establish, any unlawful and improper conduct by Jacob Zuma. The attempt to smear President Zuma by proximity to the unrelated crimes of a third party is unethical, irresponsible, and intellectually dishonest. The Zuma Foundation will not participate in speculative narrative building disguised as investigative journalism. And so I think he's not denying the fact that the meeting happened. He's not confirming that it did. But again, talking about this guilt by association, which we as journalists have a responsibility to be very, very careful around. And as I say, from the emails that I've seen and gone through quite vigorously and carefully, there is no indication that former President Zuma, actually met Jeffrey Epstein because of what Mark Lloyd is describing to him in his, post-dinner email. Asking him when he's actually coming to London, when in fact he would have been in London had he attended that meeting, right? And so it seems that Jeffrey Epstein was not there. So any reportage suggesting that President Zuma met Epstein at that dinner would be incorrect.
Now, let's talk about the tiff between Trevor Noah and Trump's favorite Trump card, Nicki Minaj, taking a swipe on each other, showing, I mean, this must have started some serious conversations among Americans, with President Trump responding very harshly against Noah. Go ahead.
Let me explain something here. I went to bed last night at around 10 p.m. Eastern time on the East Coast, right? The Grammys happened on Pacific time on the West Coast, Los Angeles. And last thing I did, Alicia, before I went to bed, I went to see if Donald Trump had tweeted anything or put anything on Truth Social about anything that would be relevant to our reportage, and I saw nothing. I woke up this morning, and apparently the President of the United States was posting at 1 a.m. in the morning about Trevor Noah, and I'll tell you what he said. So basically Trevor Noah makes a joke, right? He makes a number of jokes about Trump all night, and after the Song of the Year was awarded to Billie Eilish, he says that is the category that one in every artist wants to win almost as much as Trump wants Greenland, which he then said made sense because Jeffrey Epstein's island was gone and Trump needed a new one to hang out with Bill Clinton. Both Bill Clinton and the current president, of course, deny that they were ever on the island. And, of course, there you have the post on Truth Social. President Trump criticizing the Grammy Awards, the worst, virtually unwatchable. CBS is lucky not to have this garbage litter their airways any longer because it was the last broadcast of the Grammys on CBS. The host, Trevor Noah, whoever he may be, is almost as bad as Jimmy Kimmel at the low ratings Academy Awards. Noah said incorrectly about me that Donald Trump and Bill Clinton spent time on the Epstein Island. Wrong. I can't speak for Bill, but I have never been to Epstein's Island or anywhere close. And until tonight's false and defamatory statement, have never been accused of being there, not even by the fake news media. Noah is a total loser. better get his facts straight and get them straight fast. It looks like I'll be sending my lawyers to sue this poor, pathetic, talentless dope of an MC. All right, I think you get the point there, Alicia. But I will say this, former President Bill Clinton has not threatened to sue yet.
Oh, wow. Sherwin, comprehensive update there. Thank you so much for bringing us this report. That is, of course, SABC News correspondent Sherwin Bryce-Pease joining us live from Washington, D.C. with an update on Zuma's name allegedly appearing on those Epstein files, as well as, of course, Trump responding to Trevor Noah.